Thank you for your responses on that topic. We're going to move now to the football portion of the debate. Starting first with this question. This season, the NFL has expanded the playoff to add one more wildcard team and has changed to only allow the number one seed to have a bye week. There are also no preseason games this season, albeit mostly because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but that is discussed and has been discussed in recent years about the amount of preseason games. In addition, there have also been talks over the past few years about expanding the regular season game. Currently, it's 16. There's been talks that it probably might move to 17 next year. 18 games have also been discussed. So, Mr. Rama, beginning with you this time, what are your thoughts on the recent changes and discussions about the preseason, the regular season, as well as the postseason? Would you change the current format? How and why?
I will say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I didn't think anything was broke with the NFL format when it comes to the playoffs in years past. And they did modify it this year with, like you mentioned, one team only getting a bye per conference. I don't like it. I really don't like it. I think there's 16 teams in each conference. And you're only going to award one team, the very top of the mountain team, a bye, just one bye too. I don't like it. I really enjoyed the old playoff format, the two teams getting the bye in each conference, according to record, and the other four teams making it in and playing on wildcard round. I will modify this, though. So I would go back to, the 6 teams only per conference. However, if a team does not, or I should say, if a team wins their division and they have less than a 500 record, as you may very well see in the NFC East this year, they should not be awarded a home playoff game. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Yeah, I really don't want to hear it when it comes to they deserve a home playoff game for winning a division filled with high school JV teams. I don't want to hear it. And it's really, really disgraceful to have a team that's 7-9 or God forbid 6-10 hosting a playoff game. I mean, that's atrocious. And you're going to have a team maybe perhaps coming out of the NFC West this year, in the Arizona Cardinals or LA Rams, who are going to be a wild card team, and they're going to finish with an 11-5 record, which is a phenomenal record in the NFL landscape. 11-5, I know 95% of all NFL fans would take their team having an 11-5 record, and you're going to have to go somewhere. And although you're going to a team that's 6-10, it still doesn't matter. I will finish with this. Still, I don't like the 7 teams and the 1 bye, but I will say how would I modify it? The top 2 teams get the bye still. However, like I mentioned, if a team falls below 500, they do not deserve a home playoff game. If they finish 8-8, so be it, fine. Send them to Philly. Send them to Jerry World. Whatever, fine. But if they finish 7-9, that's a disgraceful record. You should not be hosting a playoff game.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Rama. Mr. Mato, we'll move to you on your response to this question. Solid answer, Mr. Rama. And yes, I do agree with a couple of parts of it. There's other parts I kind of disagree with. I think I'll start with the disagree. We don't know. We don't know how everything's going to shake out this year. It might be exactly what we want as a fan. I will say, oftentimes when you just mentioned 11-5, there's some divisions that are really amazing, and some teams don't make it at 10-6 or 11-5. And I feel this format does make that just in terms of I always feel like there's always one team that maybe miss out on the playoffs that probably deserves a chance to at least get a trip there. I mean, before it was 12 teams, now it's 14. So it's still just a little under half the teams. The NBA is more than half the teams. So I think we'll give it a chance. But I, too, do like the previous setting at least more. But, again, we don't have enough information in terms of to make a call just yet about the playoff format now. I think, like you said, if you're below 500, you don't deserve to have a home playoff advantage at all. I mean, as a Saints fan, seeing them lose to the Seahawks a decade ago was a disgrace. Of course, they had a chance to beat them, but it's a disgrace that they get a chance to host a home playoff game. In terms of the format, I think they should stick with the 16-game regular season. I think that's been solid. It keeps the regular season exciting while also providing good enough games to make up if you do struggle or whatever, anything like that. I do think it's interesting that the preseason, I know is because of COVID, that the play has actually been pretty good. I think teams have been fresh. I know we speculated before that maybe injuries would come into play, but I don't think it's come into play more so than any other season. I will say that I think they should limit to preseason games to 3 once they. Thank you, Mr. Mata. We'll now go into the open discussion. I'll wrap up real quick, but once they get back to having preseason games again, I think having a limit to 3 would be good. And I think they did make a right choice in adding a playoff team. I don't think they should add a regular season. I think if they're going to add games, then playoffs is the most exciting and the most just in terms of adding games. So I do like this current format. I like both, but I think giving this format a chance, I think I like it.
Good takes. Very good takes.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring up some valid points. And adding a playoff team, I mean, of course, adding a playoff team, it should never really be a bad thing, especially in the NFL setting where it has been very, very tight in those wild card races at the end of the year, week 15, 16, 17, and just, one spot available. It would be nice to have another spot, and as they did. What I would like to add too, just kind of off the points that we've made, but I think that adding another bye in the regular season is actually not a bad idea. And I actually would add another bye. I mean, there's so many times where you see teams, and especially under, the circumstances of this year with COVID and kind of the buys having to be so flexible,
right.
It's somewhat unfair for a team to have a bye in week 5, and then they have to really play that stretch, that second half stretch with really no flexibility whatsoever in those buys. And that's when you see the injuries pile up and anything. I don't think that the NFL is any rush to either finish in February or start in early August. I really don't see it. So if we can take away one preseason game and just implement another bye week somewhere in the mix, I think it's going to benefit all the teams in the long term. I think that, teams would be all for it. No one's going to not have, no one's going to say no to another bye. Mm-hmm. And I think it's not like we're in any rush to finish in that first week of February. Like, we're in no rush. And so I think from the health standpoint of the players and just from a scheduling standpoint, adding another bye, it wouldn't be a bad idea. It really wouldn't be. I know it's more of a playoff driven discussion that we're having, but I think I'd like to add that. And when it comes to the playoffs, as you mentioned, I think that, what is really unfortunate though about this new system is just that single team getting a bye in each conference. Just one getting that first round bye. That seems a little bit unfair. If you look at maybe a team that goes 14-2 and that second place team going 13-3, I think 13-3 in an NFL setting is more than enough to at least merit and earn a bye week is in the first week of the playoffs. That's just all I say. I mean, we could negotiate, me and you, Peter, and discuss the fact that, yes, adding another team, 7 teams, but then obviously we're going to get a little murky in the waters because how is that going to work if 2 teams have a bye and 7 teams? So that part, I haven't really spent too much thought. But when I heard about the new format, I'm just like, 1 bye is not enough for each conference.
I think
wow.
Yeah, I think it is. I think if you win the conference, so to speak, because of your record, then you deserve a bye. I think to me, it waters it down when you give the second best team a bye as well. Now, I will say I do like your idea. If we're going to do my proposal of 3 preseason games and then adding a bye throughout the regular season, I think, and then also on top of that, having only the best team getting a bye in the playoffs where the current format is right now, I think that would work. That's just my opinion. Like I said, I think just having the number 2 team get a bye just waters it down for me. I mean, sometimes, back in 2006, the Saints got a bye as the number 2 seed, and they were 10-6. So sometimes you're not always going to get those 14-2s, like you're saying. And those 14-2s, like last year, or 13-3s last year, like Green Bay, it was a bit of hollow 13-3. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, very, very hollow. And that's a good point you brought up last year in specific. hate to bring it up because it is a touchy subject with us Saints fans, as we were also close to getting that, bye, and who knows what would happen if we would have gotten that bye. But yeah, I think that the points you brought up are fair, and I acknowledge them. I agree with most, actually, the points you brought up, and I think that in this round in specific, we can kind of agree on most, disagree on some, which is healthy. But yeah, but yeah, NFL. I mean, it's such a tricky regular season, just due to the fact. I mean, every game is magnified, but then if you look at the divisional setup, that's again where I find most of my concern from. And time in and time out, we always do have that one division, whether it is, notably the NFC East, as it's been, or past years it's been the AFC East, or AFC South, sorry, I should say, where teams are finishing, 8-8, 9-7. Whoever gets to 9 wins first wins. And in the rare case, as you mentioned earlier, to our Saints' expense, the Seattle Seahawks of a decade ago. I mean, hosting a playoff game, that's just
disgraceful,
unacceptable, disgraceful,
nasty.
Yeah, we'll see, and we'll see, because I know that, as you mentioned, we'll see how this year unfolds, and we'll really take it in as a unbiased NFL fan, and we'll take it in as a Saints fan, as we always do. But
at the end of the day, the NFL has a great product, and no matter way that you shake it, and they can be flexible on this a little bit.
Yeah, and they can be. So we'll see. But yeah, I think overall the point, I mean, bye week, maybe one in the first 8 or one in the first 9, and then giving a bye week somewhere in the back half, just spreading out the season a little bit more to hopefully limit the injuries or allow players to come back from those injuries. It's a key thing, because NFL, as we've seen this year too, injuries, I mean, decimating teams.
Indeed. So, especially my fantasy football team.
Oh my goodness. That's another topic. Yeah. But yes, very good discussion, open discussion and debate on this very heavily talked about subject in the NFL playoffs and the NFL schedule as a whole.
Yes, indeed.